Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this final press conference following the informal European ministers' ministerial meeting here in Horsens. It is also the last informal ministerial meeting during the Danish presidency. It is my honor to present to you the three speakers of today. It is the chair of today's and yesterday's meeting, the Danish Minister for European Affairs, Mr. Nicolai Wammen, and also the two commissioners participating today, Vice President Šefčovič and Commissioner Lewandowski. All three of them have agreed to make short introductory remarks and afterwards take your questions. We start out with the Minister. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I would suggest that we conduct this press briefing in the way that questions asked in English can be asked to all of us, because I know that both commissioners need to catch a plane. So if there are questions in Danish afterwards, I would certainly stay and answer those. But first of all, it has been a great pleasure to invite my colleagues to an informal council meeting in this part of Denmark. We have been in Aarhus and in Horsens, and we have had some very productive discussions where the growth agenda was very much in focus, both during our preparations of the summit and our discussions on the MFF. We have just finished our discussions on the growth package, and it is the Presidency's intention that the summit at the end of June will adopt a growth package. This will finish our work on the growth agenda that has been a key priority for our presidency as part of the dual approach, where we simultaneously pursue a responsible and dynamic Europe through consolidation, structural reforms, and initiatives that can promote growth and jobs. I'm very pleased that during the discussion today, there was a broad support for the Danish presidency and the work of President Herman van Rompuy in this regard. And therefore, we now have a very strong mandate from all 27 member states to complete this work. But of course, there is still a lot that needs to be done, and that is what we will focus on in the remaining weeks of the Danish presidency. And it will still take the effort of not only President Van Rompuy and the Danish presidency, but of all member states and the Commission and Parliament to make sure that we do make progress. But we can see some very important parts of such a package, and that would, for instance, be reforms of the single market, including reaching agreement on the patent issue. It would also be clear that free trade agreements hold a great growth and job potential, and that we want to set ambitious goals for concluding agreements. Many member states also mentioned the importance of finalizing a deal on the Energy Efficiency Directive. And of course, we also want to targeting the future 7 years budget, more on growth and job creation, especially the structural funds, where we should already reallocate structural funds to these aims in this budget period. And we want to find new and innovative ways of financing investments, including through increased loan possibilities through the European Investment Bank and the use of project bonds, where the presidency recently achieved an agreement with Parliament. But it's also very important to stress that the EU cannot do everything. Structural reforms in member states are very important if we are to succeed. Therefore, we have a shared responsibility, but there is also a responsibility in each member state. Let me be very clear. We will work hard to achieve consensus at the end of June, but as I said, it will take the cooperation of all member states, the Commission, and of course, that is a necessary way to see things in this matter. We also discussed, of course, the MFF. Over the past month, our presidency have been going through the budget chapter by chapter, page by page, and all issues have been examined thoroughly. Today we had a frank and open discussion on the full draft framework, the negotiating box, I believe we have made some good progress, but of course there's still some work to be done. We still expect to present the negotiating box for the heads of states and governments at the meeting at the end of June. And thereafter it will be for the incoming Cypriot presidency to finalize the work during the second half of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think at first I really have to appreciate the quality of and atmosphere of the meetings the Danish presidency managed to organize. I'm sure it was also thanks to the good atmosphere of the time we spent yesterday in Aarhus, in the museum, and also in a high-tech company where we have seen how wind could be an important factor in economy and in resource efficient approach to the life. And I think that the atmosphere today also help us to focus our minds on how we can deliver better from the European level to the better growth and job creations in the European Union. And I think that after we've been both with Commissioner Lewandowski listening to our colleagues, so we are very glad that the job the Commission has done over the last couple of weeks, when we delivered some of the key elements which we believe would be a key contributions to the European Council, will positively appreciate it. The first, it's the whole set of country-specific recommendation when we are recommending to all member states on what they should focus more in the future. And this is exactly as Minister Wammen has said, the focus on the structural reform, on the consolidation, and at the same time on the smart support for growth. We also delivered on what we believe should be much better management of the service sector in the European Union through the service directive, because that's the area where the EU generates most in its economy, and where we still have too many unhealthy barriers to tackle. Then, of course, we discussed the MFF, and I'm sure that Janusz Lewandowski will speak about it more in detail, but I think it was also clear impression from most of the delegation that we see the EU budget as a budget for growth and as an investment for future. I very much joined Nikolai in his plea to the member states to finally resolve the issue of the patent. We have to find the seat for the patent office, and we know how the innovation community in the EU waits for this decision, and hopefully we can do this by June of this year. There was a discussion on trade, and I said that we still can be very proud how we compete in the trade area on the world market. We are the only major trading bloc which didn't lose its proportion on the global trade over the last decade. We still keep it at 20%, and we know that most of our traditional competitors has lost some of the competitive edge there. So Europe, despite of all its problems, is very strong in the trade, and therefore we very much welcome the push from the member states to invest more efforts in bilateral talks on free trade with ASEAN countries, with India, with Canada, with Japan, further progress in the relationship with United States or China. And I was also telling to our colleagues around the table that for that we need sometimes a little bit more courage from the side of the member states to give us the mandate to negotiate, because we clearly see the free trade works and it brings a lot of new jobs and a lot of percentage of growth to the European economy. I also informed the ministers in the Council that for the June European Council will bring the information how the reallocation of the structural funds in the member states is working, how much of the funds we've been able to reallocate, how many jobs for the young people we would be able to create thanks to this reallocation of the structural funds. I also said that we see as a part of our growth agenda the increased role for the EIB, the starting up of the pilot phase of using of project bonds, and that we also have to be ready for very important discussions on how to complete the economic and monetary union, where we see as one of the pillars the banking union, joint banking supervision, joint guarantee of the deposits, and that we also need to continue the discussion on the Eurobonds. So this summit will be very, very important. I'm very glad that we could have already started the high-level preparations in Horsens and in Aarhus in very good atmosphere provided by the Danish presidency. Thank you very much.
Congratulations not only on the performance of a Dutch football team, which was smart and a little bit lucky, but also on the lucky choice of a place, as we are normally flying between the capitals, and now due to the choice of a place, Horsens, Aarhus, we have a taste of non-Copenhagen Denmark, which is a value in itself. Nikolai Vanem invited us to get rid of the ties in order to make it less formal and to have taken advantage of being less formal, that is open and critical to some elements of his revised negotiating box. He was listening with patience. Today everything is in the shadow of a crisis, therefore it is proper also to place the European budget as a partial remedy to the crisis that is also a partial mean of a growth agenda, growth and jobs agenda of the European Union. This is not the kind of Wunderwaffe, this is not a miraculous weapon. We need to establish this mechanism of stability, new economic governance, fiscal pact, and so on. Also to deepen the single market, also to pave the way towards the new markets via the trade arrangements, if given that the potential of a growth is mainly beyond Europe. But European budget could be a part if this is really balanced as stick and carrot mechanism. Stick, of course, is less popular. Stick is about macroeconomic conditionality, enforcing structural reforms in the member states via suspension of funds that is equal to almost 40% of European budget. Mainly homework, however, with the conditionality, we have the leverage to enforce structural reforms in the direction competitiveness. Carrot is, of course, much more popular. This is about the investment nature of a budget for innovation, growth, and jobs. This is to be extended via so-called innovative financial instruments, mainly in the area of transport infrastructure. Europe is now in shortage of a long-term infrastructure financing. Therefore, with some modest contribution of European budget, it could work, and we have to test the capital market, the private investment in this respect. But I see it as a realistic and a real justification of a future budgets, that it should be partial answer to the crisis environment in Europe, and really we should exploit fully the growth potential that is in many areas of the European budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now open the floor for questions, and we start out here. Please.
Olaf Christensen, Danish TV2. Commissioner, you talked about the European Investment Bank, and there's been a lot of talk about, increasing the paid-in capital of the investment bank. Did you get any commitments from the countries today, and if so, to what extent? How much money are we talking about?
Thank you very much for that question. Yeah, we see the potential of EIB to be used much better in the future, and for that we need to increase the capital of the EIB, and the proposal from the Commission is to increase the capital by 10 billion. And we see that through the EIB operations and through the usage of the project bonds, which then would also help to raise the money on the private markets, we can actually increase this initial investment manifolds. I mean, in some of our pilot studies, it was even 20-fold increase in this initial investment. So we would like to use these initial investments for targeting the EU financing on the areas where we can see the major return in growth and job creation, like ICT infrastructure, transport infrastructure, energy infrastructure, when we simply have still too many bottlenecks on the single market which are preventing the companies and small and medium enterprises from using it fully. Today, I would say that my feeling was that nobody was opposing this proposal. So I see that it's becoming like part and parcel of the set of the proposals which will come to the European Council, and I hope that the atmosphere for today, where nobody was opposing it and everybody was looking forward to exploring better the potential of the EIB, will translate itself to the positive conclusion on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question here. You'll get a microphone.
Jette Elbæk Maresa coming from Jyllands-Posten, Denmark. A part of the elements that you just mentioned about for the growth packet, I would like to hear if you have any new ideas on the tables, if any country is adding something or taking something away, if you can see maybe other ideas developing until in the end of June.
Well, I believe it's fair to say there were no surprises. But there was a firm commitment to deliver on what we know can work. And I guess it's very important to say that it's not enough just to mention an idea if it is not brought into action. And what lies ahead of us in the coming weeks is to make sure that as many of the good proposals as possible are ready for delivery. And that is what President Van Rompuy and the Danish presidency, the Commission and the member states will be working on. And we'll not only do this tireless, we'll also do it tirelessly, because this is what is needed now. We pretty much know the building blocks, but now we need to build the house, so to speak. And therefore, I believe that we have some very good proposals on the table, and today's meeting was very constructive. It gave a firm and strong mandate to the presidency and to President Van Rompuy, and now we need to deliver on this in the next couple of weeks, and that is what we will aim to do.
I can only confirm that there are no breaking news, but this is good, because what is necessary now is not about breaking news, but about implementation, what might be agreed. And what is on the table and might be agreed and implementing is already implemented is reprogramming of the structural funds in the countries affected by the high unemployment. There are 8 missions of the Commission in 8 countries affected by high unemployment, and that is a touch of real life, because the people in Spain and Greece cannot afford fancy projects in structural funds. They need to reprogram money to what is really needed. For example, liquidity for small and medium-sized companies in Greece, or social cushion over the labor reform in Spain. So this is agreed, this is being done. More than 17 billion euro altogether has been reprogrammed for 2012 and 13. Second is reinforcement of European Investment Bank. As mentioned, this is to extend the action, but also to preserve a AAA status, that is lower cost of borrowing in the market. AAA is important for investment, for European Investment Bank. That is why they are also asking for this reinforcement. And third is project bonds to be tested already in 2012 and 13 on a modest scale in order to extend the possibilities of leverage our modest contributions via the private capital for infrastructure in Europe, for networking Europe in energy and transportation. That is good, but instead of breaking news, political announcements, we are approaching what is feasible.
If I still may add something, what I found as a new, I would say there is the new spirit in understanding that we can get through this crisis only if we do it together. So I think if we had a problem something like year and a half ago to speak about more Europe, because if it came to especially to the sovereign debt crisis, the first instinct in many member states was that this is just a matter for the sovereign nations to decide. And now we realize that with the situation that we have problems in one member state, on one group of member states, and solution another one, that what we need is actually the European solution. And I think that was quite clear in today's discussion, very strong commitment to looking for the common solutions for more Europe, for European solutions, and very, I would say, creative debate on how we can complete the construction of European and monetary union. And to that respect, as you know, very intensive brainstorming is going on between the President of the Commission, President of the European Council, ECB, and the Chair of the Eurogroup, and we will come with the proposals for the European Council in June. Thank you.
If I may just add, I believe it's important to say that what is already on the table, if this is implemented, there will be millions of jobs to be created in Europe. So today's discussion has not been about finding some magic bullet that can solve all problems. It has been about finding the different parts of the puzzle that together can contribute to making growth and jobs in a smart way, where we do not increase the depth, but where we increase the number of jobs and our growth. Therefore, for instance, discussing the patent, I mean, is it a new idea? No, we have been discussing this for 20 years. But this is the time to act. And therefore, it was also a very strong message to all of us that we should try to find a solution to this. And therefore, I guess it's important for everyone to understand that this is crunch time for Europe. I mean, now we need to move forward on some of the building blocks that we all know are needed, but where there has been no consensus beforehand. The Danish presidency has been working on this from the day one of the Danish presidency, and we are optimistic that we will be able, together with Van Rompuy and others, to deliver important parts. But again, at the end of the day, we can only do so with all 27 member states agreeing. That is the name of the game. And what we experienced today is what I would call a firm commitment to making progress so that we can present a package at the end of this month.
Thank you. Another question here?
Dieter Ebeling from DPA, the German press agency. Minister Wammen, you described the MFF discussions as frank and open, and that doesn't sound as if there had been much movement there, which would probably not be very surprising. My question is, if you are putting the negotiation box to the Council end of this month, can you already give us sort of a sneak preview on what will be in there, or perhaps even better, what will not be in there, so that we can already file some urgence from here?
Well, my experience is that you probably in the press have already had some sneak peeks into the papers we have been discussing, but what we will do after today's meeting is, of course, to analyze the contributions from the different member states. I mean, we have, of course, Friends of Cohesion, we have the Friends of Better Spending, but we believe that it is possible to find a compromise which can enable all 27 to agree on the MFF. It is also important to say that we have known from the very start that this was not an issue that would be settled at the meeting among heads of states and government in June. We will present a negotiating box, and we have been asked, will there be numbers within that negotiating box? And the answer to that is no, there will not be numbers. Why will there not be numbers in the negotiating box? Well, the Danish presidency was prepared to present numbers, but what we heard from member states, from the Commission, and from Parliament was, this is a little too early in the process. Please wait, because we need to have more work done before numbers can be presented. And seen from the Danish presidency's point of view, fair enough. Then we will work on the principles, and we have made progress today. And I would like to thank the Commission and the Member States for making progress on a file which is difficult. We all know that. But I believe that we have heard from the Member States today that they acknowledge the big work that the Danish presidency have put into it. Do they all agree on what is now on the table? No. They all want more. There's no surprise in that. I mean, the end game of the discussion will come at the end of the Cypriot presidency. So therefore, it comes as no surprise that we are not just hearing a big round of applause. On the other hand, we were not hearing boos. We are right where we expected to be today.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, please.
At this stage of your preparations for the growth package, is there any other new money, or does it just come down to this 10 billion that will be put into the EIB?
Well, I believe that I have made it very clear that there are a number of issues on the table that will create growth and jobs if implemented. And we also, of course, have the EIB being mentioned. There's also the project bonds. So there are different ways of promoting growth. But now, after this meeting, we will, of course, be in close contact with President Van Rompuy and others before we present the package. So it is too early to say what will be the exact content of such a package, but I believe that we have received very strong support to our work here today.
Thank you very much. Do I see any more questions? Possibly på dansk. Please. I dansk.
So far, one question in Danish. Are your planes waiting?
We'll answer gladly.
I'll write in Danish what to say, Maras.
Jeg kan også godt vælge. Nu spørger jeg på dansk, så kan vi se, om vi tager på engelsk. Det er i meget af det arbejde, I skal have landet med hensyn til vækstpakken. Det er jo blandt andet energieffektiviseringsdirektivet osv. Det afhænger jo af Europaparlamentets velvilje. Der har I en strid kørende, som ifølge mine oplysninger i hvert fald ikke er landet med det brev, der er sendt til Europaparlamentet. Risikerer I at køre fast?
Det er mit klare indtryk, at der i Europaparlamentet er en stærk vilje til at lave en aftale omkring energieffektiviseringsdirektivet. Og jeg er også glad for, at flere medlemslande i dag har understreget vigtigheden af, at vi får en aftale. Men jeg vil ikke lægge skjul på, at det er en meget svær opgave. Der er stor afstand mellem det oprindelige udspil fra EU-parlamentet og så det, som medlemslandene har kunnet blive enige om. Men vi arbejder 24/7 på at få en løsning i forhold til energieffektiviseringsdirektivet. Og det er ikke min forventning, at de diskussioner, der måtte være om andre spørgsmål, vil være en hindring for, at vi får en aftale omkring energieffektivisering. Men det betyder ikke, at det bliver nemt at få en aftale, fordi der er andre forhold, der gør sig gældende, og som betyder, at det er vi kan ikke med sikkerhed vide, om vi når i mål, men det jeg kan sige, det er, at vi med sikkerhed giver fuld gas i forhold til at se, om det ikke kan lade sig gøre.
Any more questions at this stage? If that is not the case, I would like to thank you all for coming here to Aarhus and Horsens to join us for the last informal ministerial meeting during the Danish presidency. I'd also like to thank the three speakers for taking your time and answering all the questions. And thanks to all of you for coming, and a safe journey home.
Yep, thank you.